Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Live with the Staff. Excited to be back here with you. I've got my new setup for the day. Obviously, I'm here in my office. Can't leave this banner hanging all the time. But I figured I'd hang it up and put it in here. I had it in one of the live streams I did last year, and I figured we could get it in again. And no, didn't meet my computer. So if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, things to interact with while we're on, I officially have the computer up and running, and so we are good to go as far as that's concerned. And so if you have questions, comments, you want to interact with whatever I'm saying, feel free to send something in the comments, I guess below, to the side, wherever it is on your screen. And I'd gladly love to interact with you today. And if you're watching this later, sorry I can't answer your questions when it's not live, but I do really look forward to interacting with you whenever the next chance I get is, which obviously in this past year has been fewer and further between. But where things are at currently, we have been able to see a little bit more people and have more not coffees, because I still can't go to a coffee shop with someone. I'll lament that another day, but nonetheless, we can still kind of meet and still see each other a little bit. And so I'm enjoying at least the elements that I get to involve these days, which is a good time. If you're tuning in and you just want to hear a couple updates, I will do those right at the beginning, so you can just tune me out if you want. But I promise I have some things that I think are encouraging to share with in a little bit. So a couple updates to start off our live stream for you all with. We know that there have been some people have been questioning, calling in and asking, emailing, whatever, wondering about the idea of a second service, because it's only 100 people that were allowed in the sanctuary at this point in time. Now obviously there's all sorts of stuff up in the air about what may or may not be coming down the pipeline from the government side of things and what we'll be able to do in the future. So a lot of uncertainty there, but know that it is being talked about. If this has popped in your mind and you're like, hey, I should tell them, we'll know that it's already being talked about amongst church leaders, between us, the staff, and at board levels. And we're just trying to find a way that we can get more people to in-person worship services without running the volunteers that are running the services and being involved in the service, running them into the ground and burning them out real quick. So there's a few different layers to consider, and so those things are being talked about, and it is in the works though. So be encouraged that eventually we are working towards trying to find ways to get more people to in-person services, which is just fantastic. And if you didn't hear, maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, maybe you've seen because you've been in the church, but nonetheless, our rentals are well on their way, and we've been developing this new coffee area, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if we have a name for it, but we probably will. And so there have been some rentals say, hey, sometime come by the church and check it out. It's kind of neat. We've had a few people pop by and just check it out. It's really, really cool. If I wasn't set up in my office, I'd take you on a walkthrough. But maybe we'll do a live stream in the future once it's all prim and proper and all the taping is done and painting and all these different things. But we've done some renos to improve our foyer space and create more opportunity for people to interact and chat and connect, which is up here on that one. And this isn't ours. This is the one I've got for our youth, but our church one is also Connect, Encourage, Impact. So we're looking at ways to create more opportunities for those connections and to do them in an impactful way, which is exciting. So yeah, come check our reno out sometime. It'll be a good time. We'd love to see you. Yes, things with youth are going on. If you're wondering, if you haven't heard for whatever reason, youth, we are running up until this point. Obviously, you never really know. Planning long term is really, really, really hard because you never know what's coming down the pipeline. But we just kind of hope that we get to keep running. We've been running youth worship services on Mondays and Thursdays. And so it's more or less kind of how church is run, where we've got a service that's going on and kids can come in and be in the sanctuary, and similar kind of restrictions apply that would apply on a Sunday, apply on our weekday youth services. And so we are running. So if you were wondering that, if you know of youth that would want to come, we'd love to have them. You don't have to sign up ahead of time because we're nowhere near 100. Not nowhere near, but we're not at 100, so then we're not worried about going over that number yet. And so you don't have to register ahead of time. But if all of a sudden we were to explode in numbers, then maybe we would have to reassess. But we're always reassessing anyway, so that wouldn't make much of a difference. So we'd love to see if you know of youth that are looking for a place to connect. We'd love to have them. And the last update that I have for all of you, Pastor Dale mentioned it in our Sunday morning service this past Sunday, but I would also like to get behind here and invite you all. I'll say it again on Sunday, where I'm speaking on holiness. But I would like to invite you all this Thursday, so long as the weather that we've had this week doesn't flow into next week, so long as we get normal weather again. The plan is to follow through with our community cleanup. So we're partnered with the Bunker, kind of plays point on this and runs this community cleanup, and we work together with a lot of the different youth groups and organizations in town, and serve our community by cleaning up the public spaces, right? So we're not cleaning up people's yards or anything. We're cleaning up the garbage in the public ditches and public spaces like that. And so our route this year is the main highway running east-west through Winkler. So it goes from Jansen GM all the way to the west end. There's not really a business or a road that marks it, but where the end of that Pine Ridge development is, but on the highway there. So we got the ditches on either side and the ditch in the middle. And so we're going to clean all of that up. We've been doing that as a youth group for a number of years. And for the past several years, we've been working together on our end here to make this a way that we as a church can kind of do intergenerational serving together, serving our community and serving together. And it's really a neat opportunity to kind of walk in a ditch with a youth or a senior, depending on what side of the spectrum you are, wherever, someone that's older or younger than you, and kind of meet someone new and serve together and work together. And so I want to invite all of you to join. Dale mentioned signing up ahead of time. You don't have to sign up ahead of time to come and join us cleaning up. We are starting on Thursday, April 22nd at 3:30, and we will go till it's done. We'll work from either perimeter of our route and work towards the middle. And so if you want to come and help clean, you can just show up and help clean. Rubber boots might be good. We'll see what the water level in the ditches are like when we get to Thursday. But gloves are always a good idea. We have garbage bags and that sort of stuff. The reason we asked you to register or whatever is just to give us a better idea of how many people to expect, because we want to serve you and provide supper for you when you're done. The idea is that we'll be done. It should take us 2 to 3 hours. Depends how many people show up and how quick we go. But the hope is that we're done by 6:30, and then we're going to have a volunteer or two barbecuing in the park, and we'll have burgers and hot dogs wrapped and ready to go, so that it's all individual served and whatnot. It's not a buffet, and that would go against regulations, but we can give you food nonetheless, and we can feed you and kind of say thank you for serving together with us. So that's why just if you can let us know, then we can just kind of have a better idea of how much food to have. But nonetheless, even if you don't let us know ahead of time, you are more than welcome to join us and come and serve alongside us. So today on the live with the staff, I was thinking about what to share, and sometimes I feel like Dory from Finding Nemo, and I don't remember what I've shared most recently sometimes. But I was thinking about what might be fitting to share, what's appropriate, what's encouraging and uplifting, and obviously last month's part of the topic, the themes that were floating around, not just here but in the world in general, was the idea that, at least on Canada's side, it had been a year since all of this pandemic crap hit us, and life changed, not necessarily for the better. There's a lot of stuff that we wish hadn't happened in the last year, and life has not gone how we hoped it would. But last year, early on, around this time actually, and this is kind of why it was on my mind, because it's about a year since I shared this, was we started doing these live with the staff's segments in April-ish, and when I did my first one, I had recently watched a short video by a guy and I follow by the name of John Acuff. I don't know if you remember him or not. He's got a bunch of books out there. Some of his stuff's really, really good. He started by doing Christian comedy, and now he does actually like personal development books. He got famous from his do-over book, which talks about, hey, you're how to have a do-over in life. You know, he used to talk, his angle was more like, you know, you're what you might consider to be in the middle of your life, and you think you can't change your career or make a major change in your life, and the whole book is about how you can. And whatever. So, and he wrote a whole bunch of other books about overthinking is his most recent one, and he wrote one about how to finish things that you've started and not to be a procrastinator. All these different things. He's written great books. I highly recommend checking them out. But I watched a video from him, and he was talking about this pandemic, and the idea that he shared, and I shared it with all of you on here, was he said something good is going to come out of this. I don't know what yet, he said, but something. And so then I relayed that on here, and I liked it. Not in the moment, because I was like, I'm not ready for something good to come out of this. I'm not ready for something good to come out of all of, you know, not being able to do anything that I want to do. So now I was thinking about it, I'm like, you know, it's been a year, and I had encouraged everyone that was watching, and maybe you did it, maybe you didn't, but to just kind of think about that periodically throughout you know, your days and whatnot, about what good have you seen come out of all of this shutdown stuff. And full disclosure, I'm not saying that we have to say that this whole pandemic stuff has been all good. That's not what I'm advocating for at all. I do think that there's been a lot of negative, and there are things to lament and mourn, and there is a time for that. And I do encourage you, if you like, to find a proper way to mourn and lament the things that you've missed this last year. But that's not what I want to do. I want to encourage you and kind of be an encouraging presence today. Maybe we can talk about mourning another day. But so now I want to encourage you to look back and think about what has been the good that has come out of this. And this, if you need a reminder or whatever, the Bible, there is a Bible verse that kind of backs this concept, this perspective up, right? And maybe you already know what it is, maybe you don't, but it's Romans 8:28, right? It says, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And so we know that no matter whether there's good or bad, no matter what is being thrown at us, God is at work for his good and for our good. And so it's a healthy perspective and a good perspective for us to have, to be looking for how God is at work and be looking for the good. God is good, right? And being looking for his good in our lives, in our world, in everywhere around us, being looking for the good that we see. And so share that. Be looking for it, share it. And what I want to do is kind of talk about some of the things that I've been observing. I guess the first one that I thought about was right along the lines with these, was one of the really great things for our church out of this, and we're definitely not alone in this one, is that we've been reassessing our online presence, right? And it's really, really valuable. I've talked about this before. This is not new, right? But for helping people that are not able to come to our church building, and right now that's also because of lockdown stuff. But the thing is, if you're stuck at home live streaming and you wish you could come to church but you can't, Now you've had an experience of what it's like to be so many people in the world around us, right? There are people that physically can't come to church because of disabilities or wherever. There are people that can't come to church because they're nowhere near here. There are missionaries that would love to connect, but are halfway across the world and cannot connect with us. And now you can actually empathize with that. And so it's forced us to be more aware of that and more strongly pursue these online connections, which help people that can't come to church physically to still stay connected and to stay rooted in the community that we're building here. And so many other churches are doing the same thing. And so that's really, really good. And I think a lot of this has also kind of forced us, whether it's us, the church, us as family units, us as individuals, to reassess our priorities. What's important? What drives us? What is most important to me? And kind of paying attention to why we do what we do, right? And one of the things that I've been hearing, one of the questions that I've been hearing quite a bit lately, is in regards to a healthy church community, and asking questions like, what does a healthy church community look like? What is most important to our church community? Does our church reflect the beliefs that we hold on to? And quite interestingly enough, we had our elder board meeting yesterday, and this whole concept was brought up about how we would like to just kind of keep that conversation going about just having this assessment of, we have this mission statement, right? But not this one, this is our youth one. But our church one, we've got the Connect, Encourage, Impact. And if you go on our website, we've got more depth to that. And if you go on our website, you can see our statement of faith and different things that we hold very dearly to our hearts on, as far as theologically speaking, what we believe and what we believe God is calling us to. And it's really, really important for us to constantly be reassessing whether those things are actually reflected in how we go through life. Be constantly reassessing, is how our church is structured reflecting that? Is how we run church reflecting the Connect and the Encourage and the Impact that we want to do? Is how we structure our Sunday morning, our ministries, all these sorts of things, are they reflecting that? Are they encouraging that? Are they spurring on these beliefs that we hold dearly to and that we want to spur on in others? And so I'm not gonna go crazy in depth on answering all those questions, because that's a long conversation to be had, and a really good one, and one that I would love to have with anyone. This is a question that I would never tire of going out for coffee with someone and just talking about what's your theology of church, and how do you see church being lived out? How do you see our church trying to reflect what God is calling us to? What do you like about it? What would you change? All these different things. I love those kinds of conversations. So come on down, we can chat. Or whenever coffee shops are allowed to. Patios are still allowed, so when it's warm again, if you want to hit up a patio and grab coffee, I'd love to have that conversation with you. I'm not going to do it on here, but unless you put stuff in the chat, then I'll engage with that. But speaking of reassessing, this year I figured I'd close. Yeah, classic pastor line, right? Where the pastor says, "Let me close with this," and then he talks for another 15 minutes. Yeah, I don't have 2 more sentences. I got a little bit more to share. But the final direction I want to go with this is kind of sharing, speaking of reassessing and looking for the good, and that I've seen, and how I've seen God at work, and what's important to me, and is what I believe driving how I go through life. I was trying to reflect on this again recently, and it was just impressed on my heart that this verse, and this is why I really wanted to have this banner up today too. I like this whole the mission statement that we got on here for our youth, which says, "Connect with peers and caring adults. We want to be a place where you belong, and we want to help you to become more like the image we were created to be, which is in Jesus." That's great. But this verse I put on the banner, I made it I made it this past year, and it's still kind of holding true for me. And I think how we want to run our youth ministry too is the Hebrews 10 verse 23 and 24, which is, let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to act towards acts of love and good works. And then 25 goes on. I really should have put 25 on there too, but the banner was getting kind of full, although it doesn't look that full here. But this whole idea that this is what we are called to do. We are called to hold fastly to that hope that we have. That's number one. And then hold tightly to that hope that we have, thinking of ways that we can motivate one another towards love and good works. This to me right here is what depth of community looks like, right? Yes, community, and for sure I'm here. We build relationships by doing fun things, right? We go watch movies, we shoot guns together, we play sports together, we fill in the blank with whatever you like to do. I just name my things, whatever. But play video games, whatever it is. Board games, so that's another one on my list. But we do all these fun things, and that helps to build relationship. But if we're not doing this as well, those relationships are going to stay pretty surfacey, and that's not really what we're called to, and it's not really what I want. I want to have relationships that do this, where I have others that are spurring me on, but I'm also being mindful of others and how I can challenge and encourage them. And so that's kind of where I try to give myself those reminders of this is what's important to me, all of it, right? Holding fast to that hope and helping others to do the same, and having depth of conversation where we spur one another on in our faith. So I want to be constantly reassessing, reconnecting. Oh man, so maybe you're hearing me right now, maybe you're not, but my phone actually says that we're reconnecting still, so that's not really fun, and I'm gonna check out this time mark and see whether I in fact am talking to the crowd or not. But we're back now, so either way, maybe you were just interrupted, maybe you weren't, but I want to be constantly reassessing whether how I run our youth ministry, how I go about my day, how I interact with my friends, with strangers, reflects this, right? And so I was trying to think about a few different things on the church side of things that kind of were falling into this. And the first thing that is the easy one for me that comes to mind is small groups, right? We do this in youth, and we do this in church. That's Pastor James' department. We run small groups, and maybe you have a small group, maybe you don't. If you do, you should brag on your small group. If you have a small group that you enjoy, you should talk about it more, especially to people that aren't in a small group, because they don't know what they're missing sometimes. And I know just from talking to people in our church, and this is not a youth thing, this is just church in general, people that have a small group that they've connected well with, feel more connected and more engaged to the church as a whole than ever. And people that don't really feel that connected, right? And it's the same has been said by many of our youth leaders, because in many senses our youth leader group acts like a small group, right? Where we're serving together and we're connecting together. We try to do some fun things together, and then we kind of act as a small group. And we do this in youth, right? We're actually, when kids come to our youth group, it's almost an assumed thing. We try to plug them into a small group. Now, we assign some small groups at the beginning, but if a kid invites a friend, then the assumption is that they're going to invite that friend is going to be pulled into their small group too, right? And the small group is naturally growing because they're inviting people in, right? And sometimes the small groups get too big and we split them, right? Because the small groups are doing good things, but there is a cap on how many people, if it's hard to connect in a small group of 30, if you know what I mean, right? And not everyone gets to talk, and not everyone gets to be heard. So there are different purposes, right? We meet in a large group to have corporate worship and to worship and be the larger body of Christ, but the small group helps to bring the depth. And so this is what we strive for in youth, and I'd love to see more and more and more of that in church, right? And Sunday morning, I was thinking about the small group side of things, and I had this conversation with a friend. It sucks that we can't just pack our church right now. It really does. I won't deny that one. But man, would it encourage me if I knew that there were all sorts of small groups gathering in whatever small group we're allowed to gather in, and having little watch parties, right? Like, now obviously this is a really bad week to be talking about this because it's snowy, icy, and cold. But when it's been warm, I've been having people over in my backyard. I have a projector. You could put a TV out in your backyard. And I've had people over. We've watched a hockey game in my backyard. We've sat around a fire and chatted. We've done different things. And how cool would it be, if we had little small groups within our church, whether you're a formal small group or not, just getting together on a Sunday morning and watching church together. Like, how cool would that be? That would just be so encouraging me, right? And I think that this is kind of where I would, churches are going to be reassessing for sure when we come out of this. How can we engage people? How can we help to encourage this? How can we as a church do this? Spur one another towards love and good deeds, and help others to hold tightly to that hope that we have too. So that was an idea that kind of came to mind. I'm like, that would be really, really, really cool if people felt more, we're more intentional about, maybe you are, so this isn't like a judgment. Nobody's doing it. That's not what I'm saying. I just think the more we do this, the better, right? Where we are intentional about gathering together, and it's like, well, okay, I can't do that, but what can I do? How can I put this into action? And so normal isn't possible, but the other good is out there if we want to pursue it, right? God is still at work, right? God's not waiting for everything to be coming back to normal and like, okay, now we can pack the churches, now I can work again. That's not how God works, right? God is at work, and God is doing good in the world around us, regardless of what's going on. And so I want to encourage you to pursue that good. Be intentional about it. Be intentional about all of this. Be intentional about holding to that hope and looking for that hope no matter what you're being faced with. And be intentional about spurring one another on towards love and good deeds. Be intentional about pursuing that community that encourages depth, right? In whatever way you can. Not that we're encouraging breaking of rules or anything, but in whatever ways you can, pursue community, pursue depth of community, pursue depth of relationship. So go and be intentional in pursuing Hebrews 10, verse 23 to 25. Be intentional about pursuing community in whatever creative means you can. Be intentional about encouraging others in life and in Jesus, right? And be intentional about pursuing Jesus every day and following everything that you, in pursuing Jesus every day and allowing everything that you do to flow out of that relationship that you have with Jesus. So I hope that encourages you today. I hope that you are left being encouraged to just really put Hebrews 10 into action. And we really look forward to worshiping with you again this Sunday, whether in person or online. And I really, really, really look forward to seeing all of you packed in this church again, hopefully one day very, very soon. So until that day comes, take care and God bless.